but faith is a choice. You have to be able to look at your situation and be like, yo, I know this is a mess right now, but I'm still going to choose to have faith. I'm still going to choose to trust God because God wouldn't leave me here because God is the God who loves me. It's a choice. It is a choice. And especially when you're first coming to the faith and maybe you've had some traumatic experiences or you're just skeptical, right? Like, it's going to be like, okay, like, it's a choice. Like, you're going to want people to tell you, like, well, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to fully have faith and to fully be committed and to fully trust God? You have to choose to do that. And I know how that sounds. It's just like, well, if I could just do that and if it was that easy, I would do it. It's not supposed to be easy. That's the point. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Welcome to With the Lord, the podcast that was designed for the new believer, the seasoned believer, or anyone on the fence. I'm your host, Sabrina, and in this podcast, we dive into the Word to help us build and strengthen our relationship with the Lord. So, let's get started. Welcome back to With the Lord. I am excited to talk about today's topic for today, which is how to trust God when everything looks beyond repair. I'm going to be reading from the NIV version as we study the book of Habakkuk, but my script was already written in the NLT version, so you may hear me quote two different versions. I prefer NIV for the story just because I feel like it's a better translation, but you are welcome to read from any version you prefer. Habakkuk 1. The prophecy that Habakkuk the prophet received. Habakkuk's complaint. How long, Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen? Cry out to you, violence, but you do not save. Why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrongdoing? Destruction and violence are before me. There is strife and conflict abounds. Therefore the law is paralyzed, and justice never prevails. The wicked hem in the righteous, so that justice is perverted. The Lord's answer. Look at the nations and watch and be utterly amazed. For I am going to do something in your days that you would not believe, even if you were told. I am raising up the Babylonians, that ruthless and impetuous people who swept across the whole earth to seize dwellings not their own. They are feared and dreaded by people. They are a law to themselves and promote their own honor. Their horses are swifter than leopards, fiercer than wolves at dusk. Their cavalry gallops headlong, their horsemen come from afar. They fly like an eagle swooping to devour. They all come intent on violence. Their hordes advance like a desert wind and gather prisoners like sand. They mock kings and scoff at rulers. They laugh at fortified cities. By building earthen ramps, they capture them. Then they sweep past like the wind and go on. Guilty people whose own strength is their God. Habakkuk's second complaint. Lord, are you not from everlasting? My God, my Holy One, you will never die. You, Lord, have appointed them to execute judgment. You, my rock, have ordained them to punish. Your eyes are too pure to look on evil. You cannot tolerate wrongdoing. Why then do you tolerate the treacherous? Why are you silent while the wicked swallow up those more righteous than themselves? You have made people like the fish in the sea, like the sea creatures that have no ruler. The wicked foe pulls all of them up with their hooks. He catches them with his net, and he gathers them up in his dragnet, and so he rejoices and is glad. Therefore he sacrifices to his net and burns incense to his dragnet, for by his net he lives in luxury and enjoys the choicest food. Is he to keep on emptying his net, destroying nations without mercy? So, for context, the Babylonians have now taken over Judah. They have already taken over a couple of other countries before they made it to Judah, and they have a reputation for being a group of people who leave nothing but destruction and chaos in their reign. They're very unjust people. They simply just take, destroy, and then be like, all right, I'm done, on to the next country. They're very much feared by countries because they have this reputation, and essentially countries are just not able to fight back. And this is the same case with Judah. In chapter 1, when it starts out, we see that he's calling out to God, and he's saying, like, how many times? Like, how long do I have to call out to you before you do something, God? And Habakkuk acknowledges that there's been no justice for the Babylonians and their behavior. They've just simply been able to run and wreak havoc across these countries without having any sort of consequences. And his biggest question is why? Why, God? Why are you allowing this? Why are they able to simply just run and wreak havoc through countries and it's not a problem? I know this isn't of you, God, but I know that you are allowing it and I want to know why. Why are you allowing such behavior? And we see it here in verse 2. He says, "How long, O Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen? Violence is everywhere. I cry, but you do not come to save." And through his questioning and through his crying out, when I was studying this, I realized that there is a pattern of people who cry out to God. We see that Job cried out to God for chapters on end about his situation. We also saw that David cried out numerous times to God, and Psalms 22 is what specifically sticks out to me. Even Jesus cried out to God in Matthew 27. Now here we are with Habakkuk, and Habakkuk is crying out to the Lord. But what I also noticed is that they all received an answer in the way that best suited them and their situation in accordance to God. Job had a conversation with the Lord, a quote unquote face to face conversation with the Lord, if you will. David received grace from God. In Psalm 22, his prayer of anguish and of sorrow turned into a prayer of praise by the end because he realized who God is regardless. Not only that, but he has all this protection on his life throughout his journey. Even Jesus, when he cried out to God on the cross, he cried out twice before his spirit was released and before he ascended into heaven. Habakkuk also gets a response from God. And Habakkuk is not content with this response because essentially God says, just trust me. And before we dive into God's response, I want to talk about this theme of people crying out to God. I feel like anybody who grew up Christian or grew up around Christians and Christian elders heard the phrase, don't question God. Don't be mad at God for your situation. Just accept what you're going through. It's a sin to be mad at God. Here we see this theme of people crying out honestly to God. And especially with the book that we're reading for today, God doesn't condemn Habakkuk for his questions. God allows Habakkuk to come to him honestly and ask the questions that he has. God knows what we're going through. God sees what we're going through. God will never diminish what it is that we're feeling in terms of what we're going through. He understands. He understands how we feel. And at the same time, we see that even though we're going through these things and even though there is hardship, it's okay to come to him anyways. And we may not always get the answer. With this theme of people crying out to God, we also see this theme of people getting responses from God, which is a testament to the fact that God hears our prayers. God hears when we cry out to him, and God is listening. And I know sometimes when we're going through challenging situations and we're looking for an answer, especially when we're dealing with injustice or when we're dealing with pain, it may be hard to wait because one, we're seemingly not getting an answer quick enough, and two, there's not an immediate solution to the problem. And we see that here with Habakkuk. God answers Habakkuk's question, and he essentially says, I know right now things look really, really bad. I know right now things look well beyond repair, but I want you to trust me. I want you to know that I am going to do something amazing in your day, something that you wouldn't even understand if I even told it to you. But I just want you to wait, and I just want you to trust me. Yes, I know who the Babylonians are. I know what they have been doing, and he goes on to describe in detail who they are and what they're doing. But I am raising them up for a specific reason, and I need you to trust me. That's God's response. And obviously, if we put ourselves in Habakkuk's shoes and we're telling him like, what's up? Like, why is all this going on? Like, can I get some sort of clarity of why I'm going through this? God provides no clarity. God literally just says, I just need you to trust me. I just need you to trust that I am there for you. I just need you to trust that I am going to do something well beyond your imagination. I'm going to do something amazing. I know who these people are. I know what they're capable of. I know what they've been doing. Yes, I am the reason that they're able to do these things right now. And that's pretty much where he leaves it. And Habakkuk is like, okay, like, thanks for the answer, but this isn't enough for me. Like, why though? He continues to ask the same question. Like, why are you doing this? And I just want to ask, like, is anybody else or has anybody else done that before? Like, you've gotten an answer from God about your situation or about whatever it is that you're praying for, and admittedly, like, it's just not good enough for you. I think that can be very hard to admit, right? It's like we get an answer from God and we're supposed to just be like, okay, God, perfect answer. But humanly speaking for a second, right? There are times where God gives us answers that we just are not happy with because they're not clear enough, because they don't solve the situation right away, or simply because they're just not what we want to hear. And I'll admit that is definitely something that I struggle with. I struggle with hearing an answer from God and just being like, okay, but, and I'm just curious to know if anybody else does that also. I think that that's something I'm gonna be doing probably for the rest of my life, which I'm okay with. But I think the most important thing is that I continue to bring my questions to God. He's not going to condemn me for having questions. He's not going to condemn me for just being curious. And I want you to remember that too, is that you can bring your questions to God and He's not going to condemn you for them. Chapter 1 shows us a few things. And the first thing is that God always hears our cries and our prayers. Despite what we think is an ideal response, God has heard us and God has been working behind the scenes. God has already handled it. Actually, God has already handled it, and we just have to ride out the experience. But just trust and know that God has heard you, and just because you don't get a response right away doesn't mean that He's ignoring you. That doesn't mean that He doesn't hear you. The second thing that chapter 1 teaches us is that we can bring our questions to God. Habakkuk asked his questions. God answered. Habakkuk says, okay, but I have more questions. And we're going to see that God answers again in chapter 2. It is okay to bring your questions to God. It's okay to be honest with God and ask your questions. As we see here, like Habakkuk is frustrated. I read this almost as if Habakkuk was like frustrated and sad, but he could be angry. But regardless, he's not disrespectful with God. He has questions, but he's not disrespectful. And so when you bring your questions to God and when you're honest with God, there's nothing wrong with honesty. There's nothing wrong with saying that you're angry, but do not take out your anger on God. That's one thing I will say. And I would be lying if I said that I hadn't done that before, right? But I've come to realize, like, I understand that the things that happen to me are for my good, and that doesn't make them any less painful. It doesn't make them any easier. But I also remember that God is a God who cares about me, and God is a God who loves me, and I don't want to disrespect a God who loves and cares for me. And it can be easy when you're angry and you're frustrated, right? Don't let your pride hold you back from coming to God and just be like, you know what, I let all that out because I was trying to be honest, and I'm sorry. And the last thing that we learn is that God always responds. God is going to make you wait. What I've realized as I've been studying these stories is that God is going to make you wait for a response, and it's not with ill intentions. It's not just ignoring you for the sake of ignoring you, for the sake of making you squirm, right? The point is to make you wait and build faith and to trust that He will answer, that He will come, that He will be there for you, and that you don't have to worry. And if He answered you immediately every single time you called out to Him, there is no trust that's established necessarily without experience. It's more so just like, well, I know because he's just been doing it, instead of just trusting that even when you hear nothing, as long as you continue to pray, as long as you continue to call out, as long as you continue to have faith, He will be there for you. Habakkuk 2. I will stand at my watch and station myself on the ramparts. I will look to see what He will say to me and what answer I'm going to give to this complaint. The Lord's answer. Then the Lord replied, write down the revelation and make it plain on tablets, so that a herald may run with it. For the revelation awaits appointed time. It speaks to the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it will certainly come and it will not delay. See, the enemy is puffed up. His desires are not upright, but the righteous people will live by his faithfulness. Indeed, wine betrays him. He is arrogant and never at rest, because he is as greedy as the grave, and like death is never satisfied. He gathers to himself all the nations and takes captive all the peoples. Will not all of them taunt him with ridicule and scorn, saying, woe to him who piles up stolen goods and makes himself wealthy by extortion? How long must this go on? Will not your creditors suddenly arise? Will they not wake up and make you tremble? Then you will become their prey. Because you have plundered many nations, and the peoples who are left will plunder you. For you have shed human blood. You have destroyed lands and cities, and everyone in them. Woe to him who builds his house by unjust gain, setting his nest on high to escape the clutches of ruin. You have plotted the ruin of many peoples, shaming your own house and forfeiting your life. The stones of the wall will cry out, and the beams of the woodwork will echo it. Woe to him who builds a city with bloodshed and establishes a town by injustice. Has not the Lord Almighty determined that the people's labor is only fuel for the fire, that the nations exhausted themselves for nothing? For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. Woe to him who gives drinks to his neighbors, pouring it from the wineskin till they are drunk, so that he may gaze on their naked bodies. You will be filled with shame instead of glory. Now it is your turn. Drink and let your nakedness be exposed. The cup from the Lord's right hand is coming around to you, and disgrace will cover your glory. The violence you have done to Lebanon will overwhelm you, and your destruction of animals will terrify you. For you have shed human blood. You have destroyed lands and cities and everyone in them. Of what value is an idol carved by a craftsman, or an image that teaches lies? For the one who makes it trusts in his own creation. He makes idols that cannot speak. Woe to him who says to the wood, "Come to life," or to the lifeless stone, "Wake up." Can it give guidance? It is covered with gold and silver. There is no breath in it. The Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth be silent before him. All right, in chapter 2, at the beginning, we see that Habakkuk has a whole 180 mindset shift where he goes from complaining and asking questions, just being like, but I want to know, I want to know, I want to know, to be like, all right, you told me to watch. You're going to do something amazing. I'm going to watch. I'm going to stand at my post and I'm going to watch and I'm going to wait. And God responds to that. God gives Habakkuk clear instructions and he tells him to write down the revelation and to make it plain on tablets so that a herald, a messenger, may run with it. For the revelation awaits an appointed time. It speaks to the end and will not prove false. Though it linger, wait for it. It will certainly come and it will not delay. Now, before I even continue with the rest of chapter 2, I do want to address a common misconception that people have about Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 2. And it was a misconception that I had until I started reading the word and understanding and having context of the word for myself. Usually when I hear Habakkuk 2 and 2, it's towards the end of the year and everybody's working on their New Year's resolutions, they're working on their goals and their vision boards and all that stuff, which is cool, which is great. And then they'll go and quote Habakkuk 2 and 2, which says, write it down and make it plain. And though it may tarry, wait for it, for surely it will come. That's usually what I hear, right? Habakkuk 2 and 2 has nothing to do with setting your goals or with rebranding or with whatever. Although that stuff is cool and all of that stuff is great, Habakkuk 2 and 2 is about choosing to have faith in the Lord when things look well beyond repair. It's about choosing to have faith in the Lord when you are losing hope, when you are losing faith, when everything looks like it couldn't possibly get any better. And God says, I know everything looks so bad right now. I know things look well beyond repair right now. But what I want you to do is I want you to go and write this down, and I want you to make it clear as possible. And I want you to continue to wait for the revelation because it will come and it's going to take some time. It will take some time, but it will come and it won't delay. It will not be late. God talks to him and he tells him, I know right now things look bad. And you know what I want you to do with this feeling that you have right now? You know what I want you to do with this? I want you to go and I want you to write it down so that when I bring you out of this, when I bring the people of Judah out of this, you will be able to look back and see how you felt, all the questions that you had, the emotions, the doubt, the faithlessness that you had, which I understand. I understand why you're losing hope. I understand why you're losing faith. But when I bring you out of this, you'll be able to look back at where you were and see what I've been doing the whole time. You'll be able to look back at this and see that I had a plan for you and it was a plan for your good. And I know right now when you look at your situation, it looks impossible. But I'm going to do something amazing that you couldn't even comprehend because right now what you're looking at doesn't look like what I'm going to do. And that's how God approaches our situations. When we look at things in front of us, when things are directly in front of our face and it looks like it's well beyond repair, having faith is knowing that even though right now this looks a mess, this looks horrible, I know that this is going to turn out for my good somehow, some way in the end, and God will get the glory out of it. God will get the glory out of it. In addition to talking about how essentially the Babylonians are going to experience consequences for their behaviors in Habakkuk 2 and 2 and throughout the entire response the Lord gives, I felt like Habakkuk 2 and 2, and this is just my personal interpretation, right? I'm not a theologian. I just love to point that out. I'm not a pastor or a minister or anything like that. I'm just somebody who likes to read and study the word and just share it. But what it also made me think of is the foreshadowing of Jesus' crucifixion. Jesus came onto this earth to save us all from sin and from evil in the world. That's why he died on the cross, and that's why he ascended into heaven, and that's why he was resurrected. And in that, it took centuries of sin and evil in this world before Jesus was even born, before Jesus even stepped onto the scene. Then it took another 33 years on top of that, for him to be crucified and for his resurrection and for him to ascend into heaven. And now we're in this period where we're waiting again. We're waiting again for Jesus to come back and for him to essentially rid this entire world of evil. This world won't exist anymore. People are either going to go to heaven or people are going to go to hell. And it's already been 2026 years since Jesus was on this earth, and we're waiting again. And it's taken a long time, but it will come and it will not delay. God will always give us what we need at just the right time. And to us, it may not feel like the right time because we want answers quickly and we want answers and we want solutions when we want them. But the bottom line is that the waiting period builds your strength, it builds your character, it builds your faith, it builds your reliance and your trust on the Lord. And yes, it is so easy to just want the solution to be handed to you. Yes, it is so human to want to be rid of injustice and to want to be rid of pain. And I'm not saying that waiting makes it any less painful. I'm not going to lie to you about that. Waiting doesn't make it any less painful, but choosing to have faith in the Lord is what will get you through it, is what will make it possible for you to still have joy in situations that look like there's no reason you should even have anything close to a smile on your face. God tells Habakkuk to write the revelation down and make it plain so that the heralds or the messengers can run with it. This is also important because the revelation isn't just for Habakkuk. Yes, this story is about him asking questions to the Lord and essentially asking, like, why are we going through this? But the revelation isn't just for him. The revelation is for all the people of Judah, so that when they are brought out of this, they will be able to see what the Lord was doing the whole time. I'm sure Habakkuk isn't the only person asking God why this is happening and having no clarity whatsoever. But when all this comes out to play in the way that it should, and when Babylon gets destroyed, and all this has been written down, they will be able to see that God was with them the whole time. It teaches us to be able to write things down for ourselves as well. I think it can be so easy to forget what God has brought you out of and just your day to day because it's just your life. Like to you, that is your norm, right? And sometimes, like once you're out of the trenches, it's hard to remember like what you've been through, especially if you've been through a lot of stuff, right? But what God teaches us also in this story is that if you're going through something challenging right now, if you're going through trials or tribulations, write it all down. Write down your questions, write down how you're feeling, write down your response from God so that when He brings you out of that situation, because He will, you'll be able to see what you are going through and what He brought you out of, and you'll be able to start piecing together what God has been doing behind the scenes. You'll start to see how your character has developed, how your faith has developed, how your trust in God has developed. But sometimes it can be hard to see that when you don't write it down. Like, you know how people say, like, writing down gratitude in the morning and just writing down all the things that you're thankful for in the morning. And sometimes, like, you can't necessarily think of anything at first because things may seem like they're just normal to you and it takes you a minute. Like, it's going to be the same thing with the experiences that you're facing now, with the challenges that you're facing now. As this chapter comes to an end, God reassures Habakkuk that this painful period will not last forever. God isn't just going to leave Judah in the hands of the Babylonians just because, just for funsies. It's not the kind of God that He is. And although God never, ever, ever calls someone or commands someone to commit evil deeds, He will use those evil deeds for His glory. And it can be challenging to consume that, especially as a new believer. It's like, well, why do we have to go through bad stuff? This bad situation right here has Habakkuk calling out to God, crying out to God. And right now, the people of Judah, the reason they're in this situation is because they had other idols. They were starting to steer away from God and steer away from righteousness and going down a path that they weren't supposed to be going in. And so even though God didn't call the Babylonians to do all this stuff, they were already doing it. He brought them to Judah so that the people of Judah would start turning back to God, calling out to God, crying out to God, and eventually seeing and being reminded of the fact that God is the one who has the power. God is the one who has reign over this entire universe, not these other idols that they're worshiping to, not these other ideologies that they have consumed, essentially. But God reminds Habakkuk that he will be alive to see how God responds to all this stuff. He's not just going to let him die, and that's all he's ever seen and known. Habakkuk 3. Habakkuk's prayer. A prayer of Habakkuk the prophet on Shigionoth. Lord, I have heard your fame, and I stand in awe of your deeds, Lord. Repeat them in our day. In our time, make them known. In wrath, remember mercy. God came from Teman, the Holy One from Mount Paran. His glory covered the heavens, and his praise filled the earth. His splendor was like the sunrise. Rays flashed from his hands, where his power was hidden. Plague went before him. Pestilence followed his steps. He stood and shook the earth. He looked and made the nations tremble. The ancient mountains crumbled, and the old age hills collapsed. But he marches on forever. I saw the tents of Cushan in distress, the dwellings of Midian in anguish. Were you angry with the rivers, Lord? Was your wrath against the streams? Did you rage against the sea when you rode your horses and chariots to victory? You uncovered your bow. You called for many arrows. You split the earth with rivers. The mountains saw you and writhed. Torrents of water swept by. The deep roared and lifted its waves on high. Sun and moon stood still in the heavens. At the glint of your flying arrows, at the lightning of your flashing spear, in wrath you strode through the earth, and in anger you threshed the nation. You came out to deliver your people, to save your anointed one. You crushed the leader of a land of wickedness. You stripped him from head to foot. With his own spear you pierced his head. With his warriors stormed out to scatter us, gloating as though about to devour the wretched who were hiding. You trampled the sea with your horses, churning the great waters. I heard, and my heart pounded, my lips quivered at the sound. Decay crept into my bones, and my legs trembled. Yet I will wait patiently for the day of calamity to come on the nation invading us. Though the fig tree does not bud, and there are no grapes in the vines, though the olive crop fails, and the fields produce no food, though there are no sheep in the pen, and no cattle in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in God my Savior. The sovereign Lord is my strength. He makes my feet feel like the feet of deer. He enables me to tread on the heights. For the director of music, on my stringed instruments. Chapter 3 is my favorite because Chapter 3 is where Habakkuk remembers what kind of God he serves. He serves a just God, a good God, a God who cares about him and who loves him. That word, shagoyanoth, that was in the beginning of the chapter, it essentially means strong emotion, impassioned triumph, and a sense of victory. And it's supposed to be like a sing-song kind of way. So this prayer is like music, essentially. Like, you ever been so happy that you just start singing just because? This is something that I do like all the time. Like, I'll just start singing, and it could be a song, or it could just be like whatever I'm about to say. Like, I'll just start singing it in a sing-song kind of way because I'm so happy. This is Habakkuk right now. He is so happy, and he has so much faith and trust in the Lord, that the Lord is going to fulfill his promises, that the Lord will hold the Babylonians accountable. And so now he's just like, I remember who you are, Lord. And I had the questions, and I had some of the doubt, and I understand. But I know that you're going to handle this. You told me that you're going to handle this. And now I'm making the choice to trust you. Right now, things look really bad. Right now, the things that I can see look really bad. But I'm making the choice to still have faith regardless of what things look like in front of me. And honestly, faith is a choice. And I used to wonder, especially like when I first started going to church and when I first tried to start reading the Bible, because my faith journey was definitely like on and off before I moved to DC. I feel like I really tried, but I wasn't necessarily fully committed, and I wasn't necessarily fully open to the idea of like reading the word and understanding that God loves me, especially with the things that I've been through. But what I will say is that faith is a choice. And that was a question that I had. It was just like, okay, like, I thought that faith was supposed to be this feeling that you have inside of you of just like having this knowing and reassurance. Like, I couldn't even explain it to you. Like, kind of like that feeling you get like when you're excited or when you're happy. Just that internal like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like you can feel something rising in your body. And I felt like that's how faith was supposed to be all the time. And now, since I've moved to DC and I've been going to church and really reading my Bible and just trying to understand who God is more and understand faith more for myself instead of like what other people were teaching me, I've come to this realization that faith is a choice. Sometimes it is a feeling. Sometimes you do feel it, but your feelings are fleeting. Your feelings are not something you can rely on. And even it's said in the Bible, it'll basically have you flowing with the wind. Like, one day you'll be here and one day you'll be there because your feelings just fluctuate. They're all over the place and you cannot rely on them. But faith is a choice. You have to be able to look at your situation and be like, yo, I know this is a mess right now, but I'm still going to choose to have faith. I'm still going to choose to trust God because God wouldn't leave me here because God is the God who loves me. It's a choice. It is a choice. And especially when you're first coming to the faith and maybe you've had some traumatic experiences or you're just skeptical, right? Like it's going to be like, okay, like it's a choice. Like you're going to want people to tell you like, well, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to fully have faith and to fully be committed and to fully trust God? You have to choose to do that. And I know how that sounds. It's just like, well, if I could just do that and if it was that easy, I would do it. It's not supposed to be easy. That's the point. If it was easy, everybody would do it. But going through things and making the choice to trust God and to have faith in God and to build a relationship with God is intentionally challenging. It develops your character. And I said this already, it develops your faith and it develops your trust in God. If things were easy in this life, we wouldn't be the people that we are. The challenges, whether they're emotional, mental, physical, whatever, build us as people and as a whole. All right, I want to address verses 13 and 14 in chapter 3, where Habakkuk says, "You crushed the leader of the land of wickedness. You stripped him from head to foot. With his own spear you pierced his head when his warriors stormed out to scatter us, gloating as though about to devour the wretched who were hiding." Habakkuk acknowledges that God already defeated evil when he defeated Satan. I can't remember the scripture right now, but I will put it on the screen at some point. But basically, there's a scripture in the Bible that talks about how this is before Jesus is even born. But I think I want to say this is in Genesis, where God essentially tells Satan when he becomes a serpent, like, you'll pierce his foot, but he will pierce your head. And I'll put it on the screen again because I know I'm grossly misquoting that right now. But essentially, when I read this and when I was studying this, it made me think about how Habakkuk is like, you've already defeated evil. You've already defeated evil when you handle Satan, and I know you're going to handle the situation too. Yes, I lost hope a little bit for a second there, but I praise you and I thank you anyways because you've reminded me of who you are. I'm reminded of who you are. I know that you're going to handle the situation anyway. You've handled Satan. You're definitely going to handle the Babylonians in due time. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait. And there are some verses where he says, even though there aren't any crops, even though there aren't any grapes on the vines, even though there aren't any sheep, something like that, I'm still going to trust you. You are my sovereign Lord. Habakkuk is making the choice, even though right now things don't look like they're going to be walking out in triumph. He's trusting what God is saying. God's saying they're going to be destroyed. Bet they're going to be destroyed. And you know what? I know God is going to destroy them because he's done it before and he's going to do it again. Throughout the story of Habakkuk, there are a couple of lessons that I really pulled out that have helped me look at my situations differently and just give me an idea of what to do the next time there are challenges. And the first thing is that you have to choose to be faithful even when it looks like things are falling apart. And just remembering that it is a choice. And sometimes it is a difficult choice, but you have the opportunity to make that choice for yourself. You can decide what you're going to put your faith in. Are you going to put your faith in what you're seeing right in front of you, the mess that you don't even want to be in? Or are you going to put your faith in the Lord, even though right now things don't look like things are going well? It doesn't look like you're going to be able to come out of this situation. God is going to bring you out of the situation anyway, but you have to make the choice to decide what you're putting your faith in. The second thing is that it can be hard to remember what God has brought you out of and the hopelessness and the questions that you had in that season. And write it down. And I know you don't want to dwell too much on like the past. You don't want to dwell too much on the challenging things that you're currently going through. But I think that it's important to be able to remember what God has brought you out of, what you were feeling, the questions that you had. So for the next time you're in a situation, because I hate to break it to you, not really, but you're going to be in a situation again where your faith is tested, where your hope is tested, where you're going to have questions, where you're going to have doubt. Anybody that makes you believe that coming to Christianity means you're just going to have a smooth life, smooth sailing, there's not going to be any problems, there's not going to be any doubt, you're not going to wrestle with God back and forth, they're lying to you. There's going to be another time where you have questions, where you have doubt, where you're going back and forth with God, where you are just going through something challenging. The challenges don't stop when you come to God. If anything, they really do increase. But what coming to God does is that it gives you a hope that these challenges won't last forever. It gives you a reassurance that these challenges are not going to last forever and that there's a God who cares about you and loves you enough to bring you out of that situation in due time. Not when you feel like it, but when the time is right in accordance to him. Third lesson is that God has got it. God sees everything. God hears your cries. God sees what people are doing to you. God sees all the injustice in the world, and he's got it. He's going to handle it. And I think it can be easy for us to be in a situation where it's like we want justice now. We want a solution now. We want things to be fixed now, that we'll go out of our way to try and create the answer for ourselves. And that can start to cause more problems, right? We didn't see that in the story where Habakkuk tries to solve his problem on his own, but I just want to tell you right now that if you're waiting for God to do something, if you're waiting for God to give you an answer and you go ahead and step out and do something on your own, that's probably going to make it worse. So just keep in mind that God has got it. And going into lesson number 4 is that your job is just to be patient. Your job is to be faithful. And if God tells you anything else to do that. But other than that, don't go out of your way to try making miracles and make answers that you want for yourself. That's just not going to help you in the end. You may think it's solving the problem, but it could be making it way worse. I don't know the answers necessarily, but I have an idea that that's probably what's going to happen. So just trust that God has it. And remember that trust is a choice. Faith is a choice. Every single day is a choice. Every single day you have to wake up and decide what you're going to believe in, what you're going to value. And same thing with God. If you trust in Him and if you have faith in Him, that is a choice. All right, it's time for our segment, Let's Talk About It. This is the segment where you can bring any of your questions. If you're looking for any advice that is biblically sound, you can bring it here, or you can share your testimonies. And so I have a question for today, and the question is, I struggle to believe that God loves me and wants me to have a good life because of my past. I know the scriptures and I believe that they're real, but for some reason I feel like they don't apply to me. How can I work through that? And I resonate so much with this question. So much. And what I can tell you is just to keep trying. Keep reading your word. Keep praying to God. Keep journaling. Keep listening to the gospel music. Just keep doing it. And one day you're going to wake up with this level of faith that you never even knew was possible for yourself. I think that people illustrate Christianity as like as soon as you give your life to God, you're supposed to have this amount of unwavering faith. And that's just how faith works. That's just how Christianity works, and that's a lie. That is not how that works. People who have such great faith and such unwavering faith go through trials and tribulations, and they go through challenges, and they go through waiting periods, and they go through seasons where they feel like they're not hearing anything from God, and that's what helps them grow their faith. They go back and forth with God. They wrestle with God. They're going to God for everything, and that's what builds their faith. And I don't want you to get down on yourself and make yourself feel like, oh, well, because I don't have this unwavering faith yet, and that's the key word, because I don't have this unwavering faith yet, that I'm a bad person, I'm a bad Christian, maybe I don't fully believe in God. It's going to take some time. But the other thing I will say is that you need to be able to be fully accepting to God and of God's love and mercy. And this is something that I've really struggled with and I continue to struggle with, right? If you're somebody who's been through a lot of challenges in life, or maybe you just are really skeptical, maybe you've been through a lot of church hurt or whatever your situation is, you start to build these doors and these walls out of steel that have done nothing but protect you in your mind. And maybe for a season, that's exactly what they did. They protected you. But now you've reached a season where you're outgrowing these doors. These steel doors do not serve you anymore. And so you need something different. You're looking for protection. And so you've created a means of protection, but you've also created a means of barricading yourself from the possibility of love, from the possibility of friendship, from the possibility of a relationship with God, all of that with God. And so I'm really challenging you to just be more open-minded, to be in a relationship with God, to be accepting of His love, grace, and mercy, despite whatever your challenges in your past may have brought you, right? He cares about you. He loves you. He's not holding any of that against you. Keep coming to Him. God hears you. God sees your effort. He sees that you're trying, and He's waiting for you to let Him in for real. You may say, oh, I'm ready, God. I'm ready, God. But you're probably still holding some sort of barrier between you and God, because something about trusting God feels scary. And there's no shame in that, because I'm telling you right now, like, that's exactly how I felt. There is something about believing that after all that you've been through, God loves you and cares about you, that seems scary, that may make you feel skeptical. And I understand that there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that at all. But my biggest thing is just keep trying at it. And I don't know how long you've been in the faith. I don't know if it's been a week, a couple of months, a couple of years, whatever. I also don't know how old you are, right? But let's just use me for an example, right? I'm 26 now. My birthday was May 21st. But I'm 26, right? And for 24-ish years, I struggled to believe that God cared about me, that God loved me. I knew who God was. I knew what God was capable of. I know that he's the creator of this world. I know that he cares for his people, but something about that felt off-putting or not real for me, specifically for 24 years. Maybe even 25, right? Because I've been taking my faith seriously for about two years, but I would say that that didn't start right away when I started going to church and when I started reading the word for myself. So it's probably been roughly about a year. And of that year, I would say it's probably been a smooth 3 months, 4 months that it took for me to get to the point where it's like, okay, that applies to me. And it's something that I'm still even struggling with, right? Especially if you come from a situation where you may have grown up not feeling worthy of love. That's not everybody's situation, but it can be hard. But give yourself time, give yourself grace. I'm still working through this with you, alongside you as well. So if you want to talk about it more, I'm more than happy to do that. But just keep in mind that it's going to take time, and God is with you through it all. He's patient. He's not asking you to speed this along and hurry up and trust him. No, that's not how he works. He's patient, and he is there for you every step of the way. And honestly, slow and steady wins the race. I'm telling you, because if you try to speed it up, it's not genuine anymore. That slow process and that slow pruning is what really helps you build your trust, your faith, and your relationship with God. And so I hope that helps. And if any of you that are listening have any questions, or you're seeking advice, or you want to share a testimony, I would love to hear some testimonies. You can submit them on the form on our homepage on our new website, withthelordpodcast.com. Alrighty, before we close out, I have 3 quick shadow work prompts for you. And the first one is, when you look at your current situation, what makes it difficult to believe that God will come through for you personally? What disappointment has shaped the way you view God's ability or willingness to help you? How has disappointment affected your ability to hear God clearly? And it's time for our affirmation for the week. And our affirmation for this week is, God will fulfill his promises at just the right time. I'm going to go ahead and repeat that 3 times. If you have the ability to close your eyes, close your eyes. If you want to write this down, however you want to speak this positivity onto your life, find a way to do it. And so, God will fulfill his promises at just the right time. God will fulfill his promises at just the right time. God will fulfill his promises at just the right time. Alrighty, y'all, that is all I have for you this week. I hope that you really found something useful to take away from this episode. Honestly, this is just Bible study for real. Like, I study and I ask some of these questions myself, and then I just bring to you what I'm learning, and I find a lot of joy in that, especially because when I first stepped into the faith, I had a lot of questions and I didn't really get a lot of answers. Not the answers that I was looking for anyway, and there's no shame and shade in that at all, but I definitely did get a lot of help. I will say that. My church is awesome. And so with that being said, you can follow us on any social media platform. We are on TikTok and IG at With the Lord Podcast. On YouTube, if you want to watch us visually, we are With the Lord. We are on all streaming platforms with the Lord as well. And you can visit our website, withthelordpodcast.com. And lastly, I have a secular music detox playlist for anybody who's looking to reduce their intake of secular music. You can find that in the link tree, and that will also be linked in the description. I have Apple Podcast and Spotify available, so there's really zero excuse. But that is all I have for you this week, and I really hope you enjoy this episode, and I'm going to catch you in the next one. Bye!